Hi there, RV and camper owners. Today we're going to be taking a look at Performance Tools Lugnut Torque Multiplier. This Lugnut torque multiplying set is designed to give you an easy way to break the lug nuts loose on your big rigs. With something like this here, you're going to have lug nuts that are torqued upwards of 400, 450, even 500 pounds, sometimes even a little bit higher than that. With just your regular tool, you might be broke down on the side of the road with a flat, or you need to take it off for any other type of repair. 500 foot-pounds is an awful lot. A torque wrench that goes that high is likely extremely expensive. They're very large tools, and you don't want to have to necessarily carry them with you because that's such a big torque wrench. With something like this here, this is a much smaller package, and you're going to get a mechanical advantage of 58-to-1 with this tool to help you break these lug nuts loose. Starting at 15/16 of an inch, going up to 1.5 inches. That's going to be the most common lug nut sizes that's out there for something that's this large. So you'll have everything that you'll need to be able to hook up to it there. You'll have your torque multiplier as well as an extension and a handle. Because with this, we don't even need to use our torque wrench or a regular wrench to break it loose. You can just use the quick handle here, which is great for getting those lug nuts off using this tool. We'll show you how that works here in just a minute. You also do get some adapters. This one here takes a 1-inch size and drops it down to a 3/4. Next to our sockets, we do also have a 1-inch extension here to give you a little bit extra length. This extension that we talked about here is designed for taking the lug nuts off after you break them loose. So you could put your socket directly onto there, or you could use this extension if you want to, and then place the handle on the other side. So after you've got your lug nuts broke loose, you can take them off with these set up. So let's go ahead and just start using this thing and show you how all this works. We got ourselves a motorhome here today. It has dual rear wheels. This is a big boy, and it's got some big torque. We're going to start here at the lug nuts. It's got caps on it, and there's a couple of different styles out there for removing the caps. The most common styles for your caps are going to either be a press-on crimp style or a threaded style. If you see these little bumps here, this more often than not indicates that it's a press-on style, and if it is, you can just pull them right off of there. There are tools available because sometimes these do get stuck, and it's kind of like a rubber pair of pliers that grips on these. That way it won't damage them, and it'll give you the grip you need to get them off of there. If you have chrome caps like this, but it doesn't have any crimps, then there's a good chance that it is a threaded cap. And normally if they're threaded ones, you're only going to have maybe 2 to 4 on there. They're usually in a straight across from each other pattern, like a plus or an X. There is usually a slight difference between the ones that do thread and the ones that don't. So just pay attention. They might not have like a crimp like this, but they usually have some sort of mark on them to indicate them. And those ones will thread off and reveal just a regular lug nut behind it, and the cap will thread off. And typically once that happens, once you've threaded those off, the center cap here in the middle then will come off, and that's actually what's covering up the rest of your lug nuts to expose those. So this is just the pull-off style here, so we pulled those off. There is one more style that you may have, and it has a center nut here in the middle for your center cap, and once you take that center nut off, it comes off to reveal your lug nuts as well. So now that we've got that off of there, we're going to go ahead and show you how this works. More often than not, this is going to be extremely tight, and it's usually easier to break the lug nut loose while it's on the ground. But once you've broke it loose, you want to stop there. We don't want to really go any further. So first you want to identify which size socket's the correct one. So I just pulled them out until I found the one that fit, starting with smaller going up to make sure we get the snuggest fit. Looks like this is going to be a 33mm for this particular one. Another thing to look at is on the lug nut, you usually find your torque spec written on the lug nut, if it's one of these extremely high, large RVs like this. And we can see here that this one does have a torque written on it here. It says 450-500 foot-pounds. So we know how much we need to torque these to, and it also letting you know up front it's going to be pretty tight taking it off. So now our socket's on there. This tool is going to then go on like this with the 1-inch shank going into our socket, and this arm here is designed to actually hit against a lug nut, so that way the tool, once it starts turning, it's going to hit, and that'll stop the tool so we can then just work it here at the back without having to hold the tool. It's got its own little stop there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this cap because we don't want the tool to come around and damage our nice chrome cap. So now we're just going to turn our handle here. This just slides on the end, and we're just turning it down until it touches on our nut there. So now that we've got this on here, we've got it to where it's hitting on this lug nut. If we look here on the top, we can see that we're getting that mechanical advantage because it's going to take 58 full turns here to make one full rotation here. But we don't really need to make a full rotation in most instances. We're just trying to break it loose so it's easier to take off. Now I do have a slight injury on my right hand, so you're going to see how easy this is that I can do it with one hand. And here we can see ever so slightly it's turning it in a counterclockwise direction, the same direction that we are turning the handle, and that's breaking our lug nut loose. And I mean, I'm just turning it with one hand. I'm putting hardly any effort into it. At this point, it has to be loose because it's so easy. There's almost no force whatsoever. The amount of force I was feeling wasn't a lot, but you could feel that there was a bit of force behind it. So now that there's no force on this, we know this lug nut's broke loose. We can repeat this on all the remaining lug nuts until they're all broke loose. Then we'll lift it up and then finish removing those. Before we do that, I just wanted to show you here, as you can see, we can easily turn this by hand now. It did all the hard, heavy lifting for us. Now, in some instances, depending on the amount of corrosion and stuff you've got on here, your threads might be fighting that corrosion, so it might not be quite as smooth as this one. But in our kit, we do have that extension that we talked about, and this allows you to get a little bit of a mechanical advantage using the socket, the extension, and the handle here, and then you can just zip it off like this. You get about, I would say this is probably close to a foot of leverage to easily get that off. That'll help you fight over any corrosion that might be on those threads. Now we've only got this one loose, that's why we've taken it off this far, but if you're just breaking them loose, you don't want to go any further than to the point where they are just loose. And then move on to the next. So we're going to get to that point now, and then we'll go ahead and show you how to lift the vehicle. Before we lift it, since we're working in the front of our RV, we want to make sure we have the back wheels chalked. If you were working here in the back, on the back wheels, you would want to make sure you had the front wheels chalked. If you need some wheel chocks, we've got plenty of different shapes and styles here at eTrailer, so you can get the best one for you. Now at this point, we would use our leveling jacks to raise our motor home up. In some instances, your leveling jacks may not extend far enough to get the wheel off the ground. We do have blocks available here at eTrailer to help extend your motor home up higher. You'll also want to make sure that you place jack stands underneath the frame of your RV once it's in the air, because you don't want to be working under it just trusting the hydraulic jacks supporting it. We want to have a mechanical stand that's going to ensure that we're safe. Now that we're up in the air, we can go ahead and remove the rest of these lug nuts, get our tire off and get it either repaired or replaced, get our new one back on here, and then we'll torque these back down. So now we're back on the ground again. We've got all of our lug nuts loosely installed. We can go ahead and tighten them back down with our tool. Now in order to use a torque wrench with this, you will need some adapters. And with this being a 58-to-1 ratio, you're not going to be torquing it very hard. So even though I'm tightening this down with this, as soon as I feel a little bit of resistance, I'm going to stop, because this is a very powerful tool. We don't want to over-tighten our lug nuts. So I'm feeling a little resistance there. That's a good time to stop, because it may not feel like it's a lot of resistance to you, because it's almost nothing. But with 58-to-1, we only need here at this handle about 8 foot-pounds of pressure to give us 500 foot-pounds down here. So we're going to go ahead and loosen this up. And then we're just going to check and see how close we were using a large torque wrench that is designed for applications like this. So now we're going to go ahead and check it with our torque wrench. I'm on that same nut there, and I've got it set to 500 foot-pounds. And we weren't quite all the way to 500, but it definitely is pretty tight. Let's see how far we have to go till it clicks. So we were pretty close. I'd say we only went about a quarter of a turn there. So there's a good chance we had hit around 400 to 450 with our initial tightening with this. So we did most of the work, and then we finished it off with our torque wrench to make sure we were safe. So now that we've got these torqued down, we can go ahead and put our caps back on, and we're done. In the event that you don't have a torque wrench like that can torque them down, this does have the capability of getting the lug nuts plenty tight for you. But you do want to make sure that they are torqued appropriately to keep you safe. So if in an emergency situation you're using this to go back together but you can't torque it, I do recommend going to your nearest repair facility to ensure that they are properly torqued. And that completes our look at Performance Tools Lugnut Torque Multiplier.